The old cargo ship had been floating silently near the mining station for almost a week before anyone decided to check it. At first, the workers thought it was just another abandoned vessel drifting through space, something they had all seen many times. But when the ship came closer to the station's outer radar, the team realized it wasn't following any known route. It was just spinning slowly, as if it had been left behind and forgotten a long time ago. The inspection call came during the evening shift. Everyone was tired and wanted to finish quickly, so they sent only a small team. The foreman, who had spent most of his life working on old ships, volunteered to lead the inspection. He wasn't the type to turn away from a responsibility, even if it meant missing his usual break. He gathered 2 workers, put on his work suit, and took the shuttle across to the drifting ship. The moment they stepped inside, they felt the difference. The air was stale and cold, like a place that had been empty for months. The corridor lights flickered, making shadows stretch across the walls. The sound of their boots echoed loudly, as if the ship itself was trying to remind them that no one had walked inside it for a long time. "Looks deserted," one of the workers muttered, shining a light down the long hall. The foreman didn't answer. He could feel something strange in the air, not danger exactly, but a heaviness like the ship carried a memory it wasn't ready to share. He moved forward slowly, checking each control panel and broken crate along the wall's dot. As they walked deeper inside, they noticed the ship's structure hadn't been damaged. No signs of attack, no fire marks, no panicked escape. Whoever owned it had simply left. People abandoning machines was common in space, but abandoning a whole ship this size felt different. Something wasn't adding up. They pushed open a large steel door that led to the lower cargo bays. Inside, rows of storage containers were scattered in messy angles. Some were cracked open. Some looked like they had been forced shut. The dim emergency lights painted the whole room in a dull reddish glow. Then the foreman heard something so soft he almost thought he imagined it. A tiny breath. A tired exhale. Something alive. He held up his hand to stop his team. Everyone froze. Space was unpredictable. Animals, strange life forms, leftover guard robots. Anything could be hiding in an abandoned ship. The workers looked around nervously. The sound came again. A quiet, low exhale from the back corner of the bay. The foreman slowly lifted his flashlight and walked toward it. The workers followed closely, whispering questions he didn't have answers to. When the light finally reached the corner, all 3 of them stopped. A large shape was curled up against the wall, almost blending into the shadows. At first, they thought it was a pile of broken equipment, or maybe a damaged engine part. But then they saw a slow rise and fall, the sign of breathing. The body was long, with smooth scales that reflected the dim red light. Wings folded tightly against its sides. A tail coiled around itself, as if the creature was trying to stay warm. It was an alien dragon, not the kind from stories or movies. This one was real, but looked nothing like a monster. It was thin, far thinner than it should have been. Its ribs showed beneath its scales, and its head rested weakly on the ground. It didn't move when the light hit its face. Its eyes remained shut, and its body trembled in the cold air. One of the workers stepped back instinctively. "We need to get out," he whispered, fear rising in his voice. "What if it wakes up angry?" But the foreman didn't see anger. He saw exhaustion. He saw an animal that had lost more energy than it could afford. He stepped closer, his voice steady. "It's not dangerous right now," he said. "It's starving." The worker frowned. Then why didn't it leave the ship? Why didn't it break out? The foreman didn't know. Dragons, alien or not, were known to be strong, powerful creatures. They were usually quick, alert, aware of everything around them. But this one looked defeated, like it had stopped trying long before anyone arrived. He crouched slowly, making sure not to startle it. He didn't reach out or touch it. He simply watched. The dragon's breathing was shallow, like every breath cost effort. When a tiny sound escaped from its throat, it wasn't a growl. It was more like a small cry. A sound of pain. A sound of sadness. The foreman felt something shift in his chest. He had always been the kind of person who fixed broken things, not just machines, but people too. And right now, this creature wasn't a threat. It was a living being that had been left behind. "We're taking it with us," he said softly. His workers stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. "We can't bring that to the station," one argued. "What if it? It hasn't eaten for months," the foreman interrupted calmly. "If it wanted to attack, it would have tried already. Look at it. It's given up." The workers looked at the creature again, and this time they saw what he saw. The dragon wasn't dangerous. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't even trying to defend itself. It was just sad, tired, alone. Reluctantly, they agreed, and the foreman radioed the station, explaining what they found. The medical team didn't sound thrilled, but they prepared a large containment space for safe transport. Everyone was cautious, of course. Dragons were still unknown beings, and no one understood their emotions or needs fully. But leaving it here felt wrong on a human level. It took time to move the dragon. They used a soft field stretcher that lifted the creature gently without hurting it. The dragon didn't resist. In fact, it barely reacted at all. Its eyes opened just a little, enough for the foreman to see the dull glow inside them. No fire, no fear. Only sadness, the kind that made him wonder what exactly this creature had been through. As they moved it through the hallway, the dragon tried to lift its head once, but it was too weak and let it fall again. The foreman walked beside it the entire time, speaking in a calm voice, even though he wasn't sure if the creature understood. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "We're taking you somewhere warm." The workers didn't say anything, but they noticed the dragon's breathing slowed slightly, as if the calm voice eased some part of its fear. When they reached the shuttle and placed the dragon inside, the foreman fastened the shield field around it to keep it stable during transport. The creature didn't struggle or roar. It only curled tighter, like it was afraid the world would hurt it again. During the flight back, the foreman kept thinking about how lonely the dragon must have been. A whole ship, dark and empty, with no one to talk to, no food, no warmth, no sound except the quiet hum of old engines. How many days had it sat there, waiting? How many nights had it spent in silence, expecting someone to return? The mining station was small, but the workers gathered in curiosity when the shuttle docked. They had never seen a dragon up close. Some leaned back in fear, while others stared in awe. The station medics guided the creature into a temporary care room, specially prepared with warm lights and a soft floor. The dragon opened its eyes again, just barely. It scanned the room slowly, then closed them once more, as if too tired to process anything. The foreman stood outside the care area, watching through a transparent panel. He felt responsible for it now, not in a forced way, but naturally, like the moment he saw the creature abandoned in that cold cargo bay. Something inside him decided that he couldn't walk away. As the medics discussed feeding methods and safety rules, the foreman paid attention to the creature's body language. Even in its weakness, it looked like it expected danger at any moment, like it had been treated badly before being left behind. That thought stayed with him longer than he expected. He wondered who had owned the ship, why they left, why they abandoned such a creature to suffer alone. Later that night, after everyone went back to their duties, the foreman stopped by the care area again. The room was quiet, lit only by soft blue lights. The dragon lay curled in the same position, breathing lightly. He didn't go inside. He didn't touch anything. He just stood at the door and spoke softly. the way someone talks to an injured animal. "You're not alone now," he whispered. "Rest, you're safe here." The dragon didn't move, but something about the room felt less heavy, less cold, as if the creature, even in its weakened state, sensed the kindness in his voice. And for the first time that day, the foreman knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger story, one that neither he nor the dragon could have predicted. When the dragon was moved into the quiet repair dock, everyone expected it to react in some way. Dragons were known to be alert creatures, sensitive to sound and movement. Some of the workers thought it would roar or try to fly. Others thought it might try to escape. But nothing like that happened. The creature simply curled up on the warm floor panels and lay still, as if the energy to even open its eyes had drained away months ago. The foreman stood near the door, watching the medics check the creature from a distance. Even the medics didn't dare get too close at first. They used long scanning rods, soft lights, gentle tools, everything designed to keep the dragon calm. But the creature didn't react to any of it. It didn't show fear or anger. It didn't try to bite or defend itself. It just stayed in the same quiet, defeated posture. One of the medics whispered, "It's not resisting." "That's not a good sign." The foreman understood. A creature that strong should have shown some kind of response. Even injured animals moved, or hissed, or tried to protect themselves. This dragon didn't look physically broken. It looked emotionally empty. The medics placed food near the creature. A bowl of warm nutrient gel, specially prepared for alien species with high energy needs. They set it down gently, making sure the smell would reach the dragon. But the creature didn't even turn its head. It didn't sniff, didn't look, didn't react. It was as if the idea of eating didn't matter anymore. Hours passed, and workers from different departments came to see the creature from behind the safety screen. Some whispered in confusion. Some whispered in fear. But the foreman didn't speak. He kept watching quietly, trying to understand what the dragon was going through. He noticed small details others missed. The way the dragon's tail curled protectively toward its chest, like it was shielding itself from an invisible threat. The way its wings stayed tightly folded, not in a natural resting position, but in a tense, guarded way. And the way its breathing sometimes hitched like someone fighting back tears. The foreman had seen machines break, tools fail, ships fall apart. But he had never seen a creature look so emotionally defeated. Each day, he returned to the dock during his breaks. At first, he kept a good distance. He didn't want to scare it. He didn't want to seem like a threat. So he would sit on a crate near the wall, far enough that the creature didn't feel cornered. He didn't talk to it directly. Instead, he spoke as if he were just talking to himself. He talked about the station, about the long work shifts, about the strange noises the pipes made at night. He talked about things that had nothing to do with dragons or danger. Just normal, everyday things. Human things. He wasn't trying to force connection. He was simply giving the dragon something it hadn't had in months: sound, presence, and a calm voice. The creature never responded. It never opened its eyes fully. But over time, the foreman noticed something small. When he entered the room, the dragon didn't tense as much. The muscles around its shoulders didn't pull in so tightly. Its breath didn't quicken in fear. Tiny changes, but changes nonetheless. One day, while the foreman was sitting a few meters away, he spoke about how lonely space could feel. He mentioned how some nights working on the station felt too quiet. How sometimes loneliness wasn't about being physically alone. It was about feeling unseen, unheard, or forgotten. As he spoke, he noticed something. The dragon's ear flicked. Just once, a tiny twitch. The foreman didn't react in excitement. He didn't stand up or rush closer. He simply continued talking, keeping his voice steady. From that day, the small signs became a little more frequent. The dragon didn't lift its head or eat, but it seemed to listen. Its breathing changed slightly when the foreman entered. Not panic, not fear, more like awareness. Like it recognized his presence. The medics tried offering food again. They tried different textures, different smells, different temperatures. Nothing worked. The creature refused everything. One medic even worried that the creature might not survive another week without eating, but the foreman remained patient. He watched closely and paid attention to the dragon's body language. Every time someone approached too fast, the creature's tail twitched in fear. Every time tools made sudden clinking noises, its wings tightened. He understood the message clearly. The dragon wasn't refusing food because it didn't like it. It was refusing because it didn't feel safe, that it was like a person who had been through too much. Someone who stopped expecting kindness. Someone who gave up before trying. One evening, after his shift, the foreman came into the dock quietly. The lights were dim, casting a warm glow across the room. The dragon lay curled the same way it always did, eyes half closed, breathing weak. He sat down at his usual spot and placed a small handheld lamp nearby, letting the soft warmth spread across the floor. "You know," he said gently, "you don't have to do anything. You don't have to eat or move or respond. You just rest. That's enough for now." The dragon didn't move, but its chest rose a little deeper. A long, slow breath. As if the words comforted it, somehow the foreman continued softly. "Whatever happened before, whatever made you afraid, it's over now. You're not on that ship anymore." His voice wasn't full of pity. It was steady, warm, honest. He wasn't talking like a rescuer. He was talking like someone who understood loneliness too well. The next day, something small but meaningful happened. When the foreman entered the room, the dragon opened one eye slightly, just enough to see who had come in. When it saw him, its body relaxed a little. Not completely, but noticeably. Enough for the medics watching from the screen to frown in surprise. Even the medics admitted it reacts differently to him. The foreman didn't take pride in that. He just felt relieved that the dragon felt even a tiny bit safer. Some workers suggested using stronger tools to force-feed it. The foreman immediately refused. "You push something terrified too hard," he said, "and you don't help it. You break it more." He wasn't an expert in alien creatures, but he understood one thing deeply. Trust couldn't be forced. So he tried something new. He placed a warm blanket near the dragon, not on it, just close enough that the creature could reach it if it wanted. Then he brought soft lights instead of the harsh white ones that made the dragon flinch. He made sure the room stayed quiet. No loud noises, no sudden movements. At first, the dragon didn't touch the blanket. But a few hours later, when the night shift checked the cameras, they noticed the creature had shifted slightly, closer to the blanket. Its tail rested on the corner of it, as if testing the warmth. Cautiously. It was a tiny step. But a step. Each day, the foreman kept watching, kept talking, kept coming back. He wasn't in a rush. He didn't expect gratitude. He simply didn't want the dragon to feel alone anymore. One afternoon, while he was cleaning some tools nearby, he felt eyes on him. When he turned slightly, he saw the dragon looking at him, really looking. Its eyes weren't dull this time. They held a faint, faint glow. Weak, but alive, the foreman didn't move closer. He didn't even turn fully toward it. He just said softly, "It's okay. You can look." The dragon blinked slowly, then lowered its head again. But it didn't curl back into itself the way it used to. Its body stayed a little less tense, like it had decided he wasn't a danger. The medics were amazed. "It trusts you," one said. "Or it's starting to." The foreman didn't smile, but inside he felt something warm. Not pride, not excitement, Just a quiet relief, the kind that made him breathe easier. Still, the dragon refused food. Days were passing, and its strength wasn't improving. The workers grew worried. Some whispered that the creature might not survive. Others suggested calling an outside specialist. But the foreman stayed calm. He knew trust was forming. Slowly, painfully slowly, but it was happening. One evening, he sat down on the floor instead of the crate, just to be closer to the dragon's level. He didn't get too close, just a respectful distance. He spoke in a gentle tone, telling the creature about his own early days on the station, how he had arrived with no friends, how he had felt lost in the noise and machinery, how loneliness could make even a strong person feel small. He knew the dragon didn't understand words the way humans did, but he believed emotions were universal. As he talked, the dragon opened its eyes again, watching him with a tired but softer expression. For the first time, the foreman felt certain about something. The dragon wasn't refusing food because it wanted to die. It was refusing because it had lost trust in the world, and trust was slowly returning. It was weak, fragile, but real. It was the first small bridge between two beings who had nothing in common except loneliness. And although the dragon still didn't eat, the foreman knew that they had crossed the most important step. The creature no longer saw him as a threat. That alone was enough to keep him coming back, day after day, hoping that soon the dragon would take the next step toward healing. The next few days passed in a strange rhythm. The dragon still didn't eat, but something inside it was changing little by little, and the foreman could feel it every time he stepped into the room. Earlier, the creature barely reacted to his presence. Now, whenever he entered, it opened its eyes slightly, as if checking who was there. It didn't lift its head yet, but it no longer curled into a tight ball the moment a shadow moved across the room. The medics continued observing through the screens, noting every small shift in the creature's behavior. Most workers still didn't dare go near it. They stood behind the safety glass, whispering how unusual it was for a wild alien creature to show quiet, almost human emotions, fear, sadness, and now, slowly, a tiny hint of trust. The foreman didn't force anything. He hadn't earned the dragon's full trust yet, and he knew it. Trust was something built with time, not with pressure. So he kept his visits gentle and predictable. Same voice, same soft tone, same distance. He wanted the dragon to know exactly what to expect so it wouldn't get startled. One morning, he brought a small heating panel and placed it near the creature, not too close, but close enough to warm the air around it. The dragon didn't react at first, but after a while, its wings loosened slightly as the warmth spread around its body. The foreman noticed this, but didn't mention it aloud. He just stayed in his spot quietly, repairing a set of old tools he had brought with him. The soft clicking sounds were familiar, steady, and non-threatening. The dragon watched him in silence. It was the first time the foreman had felt its eyes following his movements for more than a few seconds. The creature's pupils shifted slowly whenever he lifted or set down a tool. The foreman pretended not to notice, giving the dragon space to observe him without pressure. Later that evening, when he came back after finishing his shift, he saw something that made him stop at the door. The dragon's head was slightly lifted. Not much, maybe just a few inches above the ground, but it was the first time it had moved so purposefully since the day they found it. The foreman didn't move forward. Instead, he sat down slowly in his usual place and spoke softly. "You're trying," he said gently. "I can see that." The dragon blinked once, then lowered its head again, exhausted from even that small effort. But the foreman felt something warm inside his chest. He knew the creature was beginning to trust him. Maybe not fully, but enough to try. Later, one of the night shift workers mentioned that the dragon had kept its eyes open longer that day. Another said they saw it stretch its claws slightly. Small changes, tiny movements, but all signs that the creature wasn't giving up anymore. The medics wanted to try feeding it again. This time, they asked the foreman to offer the food instead of them. They believed the dragon would be less afraid if the person it trusted made the attempt. So the next day, the foreman came in with a small metal bowl containing a warm, soft food mixture. He didn't bring it too close. He placed the bowl on the ground about 2 meters from the dragon and then stepped back to his usual position. The creature noticed the bowl but didn't move toward it. The foreman didn't pressure it. He simply said calmly, "It's here if you want." No rush. The dragon lowered its head again, and the bowl stayed untouched for hours. But this time, the foreman wasn't disappointed. He could see the creature's eyes flicker toward the bowl every now and then, like it was thinking about it. That alone meant progress. A few days later, something bigger happened. When the foreman walked into the room during his break, he saw the dragon wasn't curled up tightly anymore. Its front legs were stretched out a little, and although its head was still resting low, its wings weren't pressed so firmly against its sides. The creature looked up at him slowly, carefully, and didn't look away. The foreman felt his breath catch. Not out of fear, but out of the quiet realization that the dragon was finally responding to his presence. "You're getting stronger," he whispered, sitting on the floor as he usually did. "A little at a time. That's enough." He didn't move closer. He didn't reach out. He respected the space between them, as if it were a fragile bridge made of glass. One wrong move and the whole thing could break. The dragon studied him for a long moment. Its eyes weren't empty anymore. They had a faint shimmer, tired, but alive. Curious even. The foreman wondered if it understood his tone, even if it didn't understand his words. The medics watching through the cameras whispered to each other excitedly. "It recognizes him," one said. "Look at the way it watches him." Not long after, the dragon began shifting slightly whenever he entered the room. Sometimes it lifted its head a little higher. Sometimes it moved its claws gently across the floor. Once it stretched its wings just a bit, the joints cracking softly from months of being held too tightly. The foreman never reacted suddenly. He allowed the creature to move at its own pace. One quiet evening, when the station hallways were mostly empty and the repair dock was peaceful, the foreman entered to check on the dragon again. He sat down and talked softly as usual. But today, something unusual happened, as he spoke about the storms outside the station and how the workers were preparing extra support beams. He noticed the dragon doing something it had never done before. It slowly turned its head toward him. Not just its eyes, its entire head. The movement was slow and shaky, as if it cost the creature a lot of energy. But it turned until it was facing him directly. The foreman didn't breathe for a moment. He stayed completely still, not wanting to scare it. The dragon looked at him, its expression tired but open. It seemed to be studying his face, his hands, his posture, trying to understand him, the same way he had been trying to understand it. "You're safe," he murmured softly. "No one here will hurt you." The dragon blinked again slowly. It wasn't a fearful blink. It was a calm one, a trusting one. After a moment, the creature lowered its head onto the floor gently, resting it closer to him than it ever had before. It wasn't a huge movement, but it felt like the biggest step so far. That night, when the foreman left the dock, he felt something different inside him. He had walked into this situation simply to inspect an abandoned ship. He hadn't expected to find a living creature. He hadn't expected to feel responsible for it. And he certainly hadn't expected the dragon to look at him with trust, even if just a small amount. But here they were, two beings who didn't know each other, didn't speak the same language, didn't share the same world, somehow finding a way to understand each other. The next morning brought an even bigger moment. When the foreman walked into the dock, the dragon lifted its head on its own. Not weakly, not halfway, but fully. It raised its head, looked at him, and let out a soft, low sound. It wasn't a growl. It wasn't a warning. It sounded more like a quiet sigh, a tired but peaceful sound. The foreman stopped at the door, surprised but careful. "It's all right," he said in his usual gentle voice. "I'm here." The dragon didn't drop its head immediately. It kept watching him, breathing slowly. After a few seconds, it lowered its head again, but not with the same heaviness as before. It looked more stable, more awake. The medics almost couldn't believe it. They rushed to check the creature's health indicators and found that its breathing had become slightly stronger, its muscles more responsive, its eyes more focused. The foreman didn't take credit. He didn't boast. He simply continued doing what he knew mattered, being there consistently. Being calm, being gentle. Later in the afternoon, he tried placing a fresh bowl of food a little closer, but still not within touching distance. He didn't expect the dragon to eat, but he wanted it to see that the food was always available. To his surprise, the dragon turned its eyes toward the bowl, stared at it for a long moment, then looked back at him. It didn't eat yet, but this was the first time it showed curiosity toward food, a sign of hope, a sign that the creature wanted to live. That evening, as the foreman prepared to leave for the night, the dragon lifted its head slightly and watched him walk away until he reached the door. It kept looking even after he turned off the lights and stepped out of the room. For the first time, the foreman realized something important. The dragon wasn't just surviving anymore. It was waiting for him. It was trusting him. And even though it still hadn't eaten, the bond between them was finally real, like a small flame flickering in the darkness after being cold for far too long. With a quiet morning on the abandoned alien ship, the sky above the landing zone has a soft gray color, the kind that makes everything feel calm, even when the situation is still complicated. The human foreman wakes up earlier than usual, not because he wants to, but because he cannot stop thinking about the dragon. Over the past days, something inside him has changed. What began as a duty, just making sure the creature stayed alive, has turned into something deeper. He feels responsible for the dragon in a personal way, almost like someone feels responsible for a troubled friend who needs support but doesn't know how to ask for it. He walks toward the ship while holding a container of warm broth. It is the only thing the dragon has accepted so far, and even that is rare. When he enters the quiet hallway, he hears a soft hum from the ship's old machinery. The place smells slightly metallic, but he doesn't mind anymore. He knows every corner of this ship by now, every crack in the floor, every flickering light. It has become part of his daily routine, almost like visiting a patient who refuses to give up but still struggles with something too heavy to show in words. When he reaches the room, the dragon is awake. Its eyes follow him slowly, not aggressive, not excited, just tired. The dragon's scales look dull, but a little better than before, as if it finally has some strength returning. He sits down on the metal floor near the dragon, keeping a safe distance, but close enough to show he's not scared. He places the warm container in front of it and waits without speaking. He has learned that the dragon eats only when it wants to, not when someone pushes it. After a few minutes, the dragon leans forward, sniffing the steam that rises from the container. The foreman watches silently. When the dragon finally takes a slow sip, he feels something like relief washing through his chest. It's the small victories that matter now. Every sip is a sign that the creature hasn't given up completely. He stays there quietly as the dragon drinks, listening to the soft breathing of the creature. For a moment, the air feels peaceful, almost like both of them understand each other without speaking. When the dragon is done, it lifts its head and looks at him in a way that feels more meaningful than words. He gently whispers, "Good job." You're doing better. The dragon's eyes soften, and he can see the sadness inside them, but also a tiny spark of trust. Later that day, the foreman meets with the other workers at the base. They sit around a simple table, drinking tea from metal mugs, talking about repairs, schedules, and supplies. But everyone knows why the foreman looks tired. They all know about the dragon. Some workers are supportive, some are unsure, and a few are scared. One of them asks him if it's worth risking his time on something that might never change. The foreman simply says, "I can't leave it like that. It needs help." His voice is calm but firm. They know he means it. That evening, he returns to the ship again. This time, he brings something different. He brings a small device that plays soft sounds, something his old mentor once gave him for stressful nights. It makes a gentle humming sound, almost like wind moving through trees. He places it near the dragon, hoping the calm sound might comfort the creature. The dragon tilts its head slightly, listening. For the first time, it moves a little closer to where the foreman sits. Just a small shift, but enough to make the moment feel special. As the hours pass, the foreman begins talking not loudly, just in a steady, gentle voice about normal things. He tells the dragon about the base, about the strange food the workers tried last week, about the time a supply truck got stuck in a small ditch and everyone laughed while pulling it out. Simple stories that make life feel normal. He doesn't expect the dragon to understand every word, but he knows that tone, rhythm, and presence matter. Lonely beings understand loneliness, even without perfect language. By the third night of that week, something unexpected happens. When the foreman enters the ship, the dragon lifts its head higher than usual. It gives a soft rumbling sound, not a growl, but something closer to a greeting. The foreman stops, surprised. Slowly he steps closer, whispering, "Hey, I'm here." The dragon stands a little and takes 2 shaky steps toward him. It's clear the creature is still weak, but the movement shows effort and willingness, a step toward trust. He decides not to push any further. He just sits down on the floor again, placing the warm food nearby. The dragon eats more than before. When it finishes, it doesn't move away immediately. It keeps staring at him with a kind of quiet curiosity, almost like it's finally wondering about the human who keeps returning again and again, offering food, calmness, patience, and presence. Over the next days, the bond grows slightly stronger. The dragon starts responding when he enters the ship. Sometimes it lifts its wings and stretches them gently, as if trying to regain strength. Sometimes it tries to mimic the soft humming sound from the device he brought. The foreman laughs quietly when it does that, realizing the creature might be trying to communicate in the only way it knows. One afternoon, heavy rain begins pouring over the landing zone. The workers hurry indoors, but the foreman rushes to the ship. He knows the rain can make the temperature inside drop quickly, and the dragon still reacts badly to cold. When he reaches the room, he finds the dragon shivering slightly. Without thinking twice, he closes the side vents of the ship to keep the warm air inside. He sets down extra blankets near the dragon, though he knows it cannot use them the way humans do. Still, he hopes the warmth might help. The dragon watches him with wide, alert eyes. Slowly, very slowly, it lowers its head near his arm, not touching, but close enough to show that it understands he's trying to help. It's the closest the creature has ever come to him. The foreman holds his breath, afraid to move too fast. He simply stays still, allowing the dragon to sense his calmness. After a long moment, the dragon pulls back slightly, but no longer looks distant. There is something new in its gaze, something like gratitude. That night, the foreman can't stop thinking about that moment. He sits in his small cabin, replaying it again and again in his mind. There was a connection, something real, something that made all his efforts feel worth it. He knows the dragon is still sad and recovering, but now he can see a path forward. A slow path, yes, but a real one. The next morning, he brings something special to the ship, a small hand-carved object he made from scrap wood. It's shaped like a tiny star, simple but meaningful. He places it on the floor, near the dragon. The dragon studies it with curiosity, then gently nudges it with its nose. The foreman smiles. This small action shows the creature is slowly finding interest in life again, an important sign of healing. As the days move on, the dragon starts eating regularly, though still not much. It moves around more often, stretching its wings to test their strength. Sometimes it even makes a soft chirping sound when the foreman enters, like a greeting learned from watching him. But the most important change happens one evening near the end of Part 4. The foreman sits on the floor after feeding the dragon. He feels tired and leans back against a wall. Without warning, the dragon slowly walks toward him. Very carefully, it lies down a short distance away, not touching him, but close. Close enough that he can feel the warm breath of the creature. It's the first time the dragon has chosen to rest near him on its own. The foreman closes his eyes, feeling a sense of peace that he hasn't felt in a long time. The dragon's breathing becomes slow and steady. They sit like that for several minutes, sharing the same quiet space, bonded by understanding rather than words. What started as tragedy is turning into trust. What began as hopelessness is slowly growing into healing. The foreman knows the journey is not over. The dragon is not fully recovered. But for the first time since he met the creature, he feels confident about its future. There is still sadness in the dragon's heart, but now there is also something else, something fragile but real. Hope. With a new kind of morning on the alien ship, the feeling in the air is different, almost lighter than the days before. The foreman walks toward the ship with his usual container of warm broth, but this time his steps feel less heavy. He knows that something important is happening with the dragon now. It is no longer only surviving. It is slowly finding a way back to life. When he enters the ship, he hears a soft sound, almost like a dragon trying to call him. Not loud, just a small rumble, but enough to let him know the creature is awake and aware of his arrival. This small gesture fills his chest with warmth. He walks into the room, and for the first time, he sees the dragon sitting up with its wings partially open. The creature looks stronger, still thin, but not as weak as before. Its eyes follow him with a gentle, curious expression, instead of the old, empty sadness. He sets the warm broth in front of the dragon like he always does, but something different happens. Instead of waiting for him to step back, the dragon leans down and begins drinking right away. The foreman stands still, watching the creature eat with a mix of joy and disbelief. He feels like a parent watching a child finally recovering after a long illness. After finishing the broth, the dragon lifts its head and makes a soft sound, something almost like gratitude. The foreman smiles and sits down on the floor, not too close, but close enough for the dragon to see him clearly. He talks in a calm voice, describing the weather outside, the work being done at the base, and even a funny moment involving two workers arguing over who misplaced a tool. The dragon listens with steady eyes, blinking slowly as if enjoying the sound of his voice. Later that afternoon, the base commander calls for a meeting. The workers gather in a small briefing room, discussing the next steps for the abandoned ship and the creature living inside. Some are unsure about keeping the dragon here. They worry about safety, supplies, and the future. But the foreman speaks up in a steady voice. He explains how much progress the dragon has made and how close it is to full recovery. He tells them how the creature is no longer dangerous or unpredictable. It just needed kindness, patience, and a chance to trust someone again. The room falls quiet, and several workers exchange thoughtful glances. They've seen the foreman's dedication over the past weeks. They've seen how the dragon stopped refusing food, how the foreman always returned unharmed, and how the ship remained peaceful. The commander finally nods and says they will wait before making any decisions. The foreman feels relieved. He doesn't want to rush the dragon or force it into anything before it's ready. That evening, when he returns to the ship, he finds the dragon waiting near the doorway instead of in the far corner where it usually stays. The creature stands slowly and takes a few steps toward him. Its claws click softly on the metal floor. The foreman pauses, surprised by this new behavior. The dragon lowers its head slightly, as if greeting him. "You're really getting better," he whispers with a smile. He sits down and the dragon settles near him, closer than ever before. Its tail rests loosely on the floor, and its wings fold neatly. The foreman reaches out his hand slowly, giving the dragon the chance to decide. After a moment of stillness, the dragon leans forward and gently touches his hand with its warm snout. It's not a strong touch, soft, almost shy, but it's a clear sign of trust. The foreman feels a deep emotion rising inside him. Weeks ago, this creature was broken, refusing food, refusing life, shutting out the world. Now it is leaning against him with quiet trust. He whispers softly, "You did it? You really did." Over the next few days, the dragon begins exploring the ship more confidently. It stretches its wings fully, letting the light from the windows reflect across its scales. They're still dull, but hints of natural shine have started to return. Sometimes the dragon walks around the hallways, sniffing old equipment, listening to distant sounds, and learning about its surroundings. The foreman watches each step with a careful eye. He doesn't push the dragon. He lets it move freely, encouraging it whenever it hesitates. Sometimes he speaks softly to reassure it. Sometimes he simply stands next to it in silence. The dragon seems to understand that it's not alone anymore. One morning, something surprising happens. The dragon walks toward the exit of the ship, pausing at the doorway as if thinking deeply. The foreman stands behind it, wondering if the creature is ready to step outside. The world outside is huge, loud, and full of unfamiliar sights. The dragon looks out at the dusty ground, the tall equipment, and the busy workers moving around. For a moment, the dragon seems unsure. Then it steps back inside. The foreman doesn't push it. Instead, he rests his hand lightly on the wall and says gently, "Whenever you're ready. No hurry." Day by day, the dragon gets braver. It begins making soft noises, sometimes rumbling happily, sometimes chirping in short bursts. The workers at the base hear these sounds and realize that the creature is changing. Some of them gather near the ship, curious but respectful. They stay outside, watching quietly as the foreman and the dragon interact like an unlikely pair who somehow understand each other perfectly. One worker whispers, "It doesn't look dangerous at all." Another replies, "It looks peaceful." Slowly, the worker's fear begins to fade. One evening, just before sunset, the foreman stands beside the dragon near the open doorway again. The sky outside glows with soft orange and pink shades. The dragon stares at the horizon like it's seeing something meaningful, something it remembers from long ago. The creature steps forward. One foot touches the ground outside the ship. The foreman watches, breath held, not wanting to disrupt the moment. The dragon takes another step and another. Suddenly, it's standing completely outside, feeling the open air for the first time in months. The wind moves softly across its wings. The dragon lifts its head, and for the first time since the foreman found it, it lets out a deep, strong sound, a sound not of sadness or fear, but of life. The workers stop what they're doing, staring at the creature in awe. The sound echoes across the landing zone, like a signal that the dragon has returned to the world. The foreman steps beside it. The dragon looks at him with warm, intelligent eyes. Something unspoken passes between them: gratitude, trust, and a bond formed through patience and kindness. The dragon spreads its wings slowly, testing their weight. For a moment, it seems like it might fly. The workers hold their breath. The foreman watches quietly, not wanting to interrupt its decision. But the dragon folds its wings again and looks back at the foreman. It steps closer and lowers its head gently toward him. The message is clear: not yet. It is not leaving. Not today. The foreman places his hand on the side of its neck, feeling the warmth of its scales. The dragon closes its eyes, letting the moment settle peacefully between them. Days pass, and the dragon grows stronger. It eats regularly, moves with confidence, and interacts with the workers who approach respectfully. Some of them bring bowls of water or small pieces of safe food. The dragon accepts their presence, but it always looks for the foreman first. He remains its anchor, the one who helped it through the hardest part of its life. Eventually, the day comes when the dragon finally decides to take flight. It happens early in the morning, when the sky is clear and the sun rises with a soft glow. The foreman stands near the ship, watching the dragon stretch its wings wider than ever before. This time there is no hesitation. The dragon looks at the foreman one last time, eyes calm and grateful. The creature gives a low rumble, spreads its wings, and lifts itself into the air with powerful grace. Dust swirls beneath it as the workers watch in silent awe. The dragon flies higher and higher until it becomes a shining shape against the bright sky. The foreman feels a mix of happiness and sadness. A part of him wishes the dragon would stay, but another part knows that this moment is exactly what they worked for. The creature is free, now strong, healed, and full of life again. As the dragon disappears into the distance, the foreman whispers softly, "Take care, my friend." He stands there for a long time, looking at the sky where the dragon vanished. And even though the creature is gone, the warmth in his heart remains. He knows that their bond will never fade. He helped bring a life back from the edge, and that memory will stay with him forever. The story ends not with loss, but with a beautiful truth. Healing comes when someone refuses to give up, when someone shows kindness, patience, and understanding, even to a lonely creature who had forgotten what hope felt like. And because of that, the dragon lived again.